Cleft sentences are basically complex sentences that split a simple sentence into two parts to emphasize something, whether it's an object or the action of this simple sentence. There are tons of types of cleft sentences, and I will not be explaining everything about them, but I will explain you two main types of the cleft sentences, and you will understand how they are formed and why you should use them when you speak or write. So let's start with some examples so that you understand what I'm talking about. And the first example is pretty easy. All we need is love. This is basically the cleft sentence. The initial sentence was we need love. This is the simple sentence with only 3 words. But then we transform the sentence into all we need is love. 2 parts, all we need and is love. And what we wanted to emphasize in the sentence, we actually put in the end of the cleft sentences. So we wanted to emphasize the word love. All we need is love. The next example, it was Shayla who stole my wallet. Now in this sentence, we wanted to emphasize that it was exactly Shayla who stole the wallet, so we put it in the first part of the sentence. So you may see that there is no actual rule that you want to put a certain object or action in the first or in the second part to emphasize it. So the cleft sentence originally emphasizes something, whether you put it in the first part or in the second part. So it was Shayla who stole my wallet. The original sentence was Shayla stole my wallet. But we add a lot of emotion when we say it was Shayla who stole my wallet. We are sure that it was exactly Shayla and nobody else. And there are possible variations. We can say the person who stole my wallet was Shayla, and this is also the cleft sentence, but we put Shayla in the second part and we still emphasize that we exactly know that this is Shayla who stole the wallet. The next example, the reason why I came here today is to learn new grammar. You can say when you come to some English course or something. The original sentence was I came here today to learn new grammar. But it's pretty easy and you don't emphasize anything. So you say the reason why I came here today is to learn new grammar. We put the word the reason in the first part of this cleft sentence to let the listener or the reader know that after this word we will tell the reason. So this is the way to emphasize something, just to introduce this object or action or whatever in your cleft sentence first. But if you take classical grammar, you will see that it says the cleft sentence has 2 types, and there are what cleft sentences and it cleft sentences. So basically the sentences that start with what and with it. And basically these 2 types of cleft sentences carry all the needed grammar that we need to understand to know the cleft sentences. The cleft sentences that start with what are the most common in English language, so we'll start with this type. Let's start with some examples. I want to visit Albania. This is just a simple sentence. You can use 2 types of what cleft sentences. What I want to do is visit Albania. Or what I want to visit is Albania. Or what country I want to visit is Albania. So let's look closely at these examples. What I want to do is visit Albania. It may sound a little bit counterintuitive because of the verb visit. Yeah, so we use the infinitive verb in this case. What I want to do is visit Albania. You may want to use infinitive with to. What I want to do is to visit Albania. And actually, English grammar is flexible in this case, and you can use infinitive with to. But in most cases, when native speakers use this grammar, they will not use infinitives with to. So they will say, what I want to do is visit Albania. Now you can also notice that the verb to be splits the parts of the cleft sentences. So what I want to do is visit Albania. It's quite interesting that the form of this verb, of course, depends on the tense in the first part of the sentence. And if it's present tense, like in our case, what I want to do, it's present tense, we use is. And also when it's future tense, we will also use is. For example, what I will do in the future is visit Albania. The use of future tense in the first part of the sentence will not convert our is to will be. It will not convert to future simple. When the first sentence is in future, we will still use is. What I will do when I retire is buy an electric guitar. This one also sounds pretty weird, but this is what grammar wants us to do. But when the first part of the sentence goes to the past, we will use was instead of is. For example, what she wanted to do was learn German. You see that the first part is in past simple, wanted, so we use was instead of is. What she did was relocate to Austria. One more example with the past simple in the cleft sentence. What she did was relocate. What they did was scream. That's a pretty simple example. What they did was scream. To me, it doesn't sound natural because in my language, we have a much shorter range of cleft sentences. We have them in Ukrainian, but we have a much shorter range. So in English, this grammar is way more complex. So some things may sound not so natural to you. But you just need to remember several types of these examples and you will understand. And you will hear when somebody tells you this, and then you will remember the rules. So let's brush up. The formula of what cleft sentence is pretty easy. You use what, plus you use first part of the cleft sentence, and then you use the verb to be. Usually it's is, but if the cleft sentence is in past, you use was. After that, you put the infinitive of the main verb and just finish the sentence. This works with what cleft sentences, unless we want to emphasize the object. Because when we emphasize the object, we don't have the infinitive there. What I love is burgers. Now, the second type of the cleft sentence is eat cleft sentence, when it starts with eat. So the eat cleft sentence usually emphasizes the object, but not the action. So it's pretty easy. You don't need to remember all this nasty grammar. You just want to understand the pattern of this cleft sentence. And let's look at examples to see the pattern. So we have initial sentence. You invited me to the party yesterday. This is a simple sentence, not a cleft sentence. So let's make some cleft sentences with it. It was you who invited me to the party yesterday. In this case, we emphasize that it was exactly you, not anyone else. It was you. Then we can also emphasize something else. It was yesterday that you invited me to the party. It was exactly yesterday, not the day before yesterday, not last week, not last month, but yesterday. It was yesterday that you invited me to the party. Sounds pretty easy. And we can emphasize that we were invited exactly to the party. For example, it was the party that you invited me yesterday to. It was the party, not the grammar lesson, not something else. It was exactly the party. As you see, eat cleft sentence is much easier in terms of grammar. There are no infinitives, there is no the word to be. You just need to understand the structure of this cleft sentence to use it correctly. And let's compare it with some other examples of what cleft sentences. So the initial sentence, Sarah loves playing soccer. We can emphasize the action here, so play. What Sarah loves is play soccer. Or we can emphasize the soccer. What Sarah loves playing is soccer. Then another example, the initial sentence, they will travel to Australia next month. We may, I think here we can only make one cleft sentence. What they will do is travel to Australia next month. Then let's imagine the initial sentence. I watched that old film yesterday. What I did yesterday was watch that old film. What I watched yesterday was that old film. So the cleft sentence is a pretty easy piece of grammar that you can use to sound fluently. But if you don't know the exact word order, if you don't know the exact structure of the cleft sentence, you shouldn't use it. But if you want to remember this piece of grammar, make your own examples. This is the best way to remember something in English. Make hundreds of your own examples and you will be absolutely okay with this grammar whether you hear it and need to understand, or whether you want to say something with this grammar.